ISO series, we have two, generic one. Generic means that the standard one. And then we are going to look in terms of ISO 9001 and also 14,000. So 9001 is the documentation, more towards the QMS, the requirements that we need to follow. Whereas for the ISO 14,000 is more towards the environment management system, okay, EMS. And we also have another one which is 22,000. This 22,000 is focused in terms of the food safety management system. Okay. Where we're going to look into the what element involved under the food safety management system, but more focused on in terms of the food industry lah, right? We're going to look in terms of the benefits of ISO. Uh, this is considered as the important one, the main step to prepare an organization for ISO registration. So basically, we have like a five main step, okay, under the ISO registration. And we also have the process model whenever we want to work in terms of, like when we talk about like quality is more towards the improving the current condition. So process model is more towards that we identify our problems and then we want to actually work on that, okay, to enhance the process, to enhance the procedures or whatsoever. And we also have the step-by-step guideline. This is more towards like it's like a detailed guideline in order for us to achieve the ISO. Just now we have the main step, but this one is more towards a detailed guideline. So this can aid us in order to can help us in targeting the ISO certification for our company. Okay, last but not least is the ISO 22000 2018. So 2018 is the first revision because previously we have like we will just apply the standard, okay, and even though the name is like 2018, that is considered as the year of the revisions has been made, but it actually been published in 2020 by Jabatan Department of Standard Malaysia, yeah. So 2020, right? So more or less about the outlines, what we are going to look in terms of the ISO, because if you want to, like probably some of you might not really familiar with the ISO. It's like GMP, HACCP, ISO, GHP, Halal. So it's more towards the certificates that we want to have in our company. Okay, it's not compulsory. It's more towards a voluntary, but if you have that, it's actually considered as a credit to your company because customer will actually, you know, trust your company more or less like that. Okay, so whenever we want to look in terms of the ISO, yeah, basically the word ISO, it's like isometric. ISO means it actually comes from the Greek word, which means the equal balance or equitably. So means that whenever it refer to equal, it means that every country that apply the ISO is actually adapting a similar guideline or the requirements. So it can be accepted worldwide, means that if we have the Malaysian standard here in Malaysia, the ISO 20000 can also be used. For example, let's say if you want to export your product to other country like Indonesia or Australia or Japan or whatsoever. But of course, they will have like their own standard. But basically, it's actually referring to a similar standard. Okay, 22,000. More towards like food safety. Whenever you have like 9,000, 9,001, that one is a little bit, it's not lower, it's more simpler because 9001 relates with the documentation. So any documentation that you have, if you want to apply for 9001, it's more towards that how you manage or handle the documentation in your factory or company. Okay. So the ISO is actually the world largest developers of standard. We have like a lots of different standard. Whenever we talk about like food industry, we have like the 22,000. Okay, one of it. And we also have the EMS 14,000. That's a lot more. Probably you can just like scroll down later on. And then a network created by a network, okay, network of a national standard, which consists of 162. But this number is actually keep increasing because different country, because through ISO we can actually transfer the knowledge or transfer the technology. So it's like, we have Japan or Korean, any countries that consider as east country that is they already developed, okay, and they want to help other countries. So through ISO, they actually can transfer the knowledge or technology. So means that the technology can be transferred to Malaysia using the ISO standard. Okay, so from here, each of the country can benefit to each other because they like Japanese country can enhance the improvement of a developing country. So more or less like that. Okay. And at the same time, they can also export their product to other country. So that can actually improve the, the recognition and also the product from that particular country. The Central Secretariat is in Geneva, Switzerland. That actually coordinate the system. So whenever we talk about like ISO, it relate with a consensus. Yeah, consensus mean the agreement. So agreement is like you have to sit in. It's like we have like some sorts of meeting, and then you have to sit together, and from there we agreed to certain specifications or requirements. So consensus is actually being made based on the agreement between each representative from the different country. So from there, they can actually share the idea and also the knowledge. Okay. It is a non-governmental organization, and it can also be used for the external quality assurance purposes, because we know that ISO is more towards like a documentations, the requirements, the okay, so it's a credit to them. Okay. So what does it mean by international standardization? Yeah, when we talk about the ISO, okay, this is actually the examples of logos. If you look here, we have like a 14,000. This one is the 14,000, and then we have this one is the ISO 20,000, more towards the food safety management. And we also have the 9,001, 2015. So 2015 is actually the year of its been published, and this can be used like a worldwide. Okay, this one can be used worldwide. It depends on the nature of the company, because we have like a different kinds of ISO that can be applied in a company. Yeah. What does it mean by international standardization? So international standardization means more towards that. As I mentioned just now, whenever we have like a representative to represent different country, okay, it's like Malaysia, we have a representative that go to Geneva and then sit together to actually come up with a new standard and so on. So from there, when we agree upon something, okay, the requirements means that that requirement can also be used in other country and also can be applied in our country. So international standardization is more towards like the agreement that we achieve among the representative that represent their whole their country, okay, in order to create like a new standards. Okay, so standard, like even in Malaysia we have like a technical committee for a Malaysian standard. For example, let's say if we talk about like the food itself, okay, food processing or any in a food area, we have like a 21 TC. TC is a technical committee. So these people is actually sit together and develop a new standard. Okay, or sometimes example like they just revise on the previous standard that already been published. Yeah, so more or less the same. It looks similar, like with the ISO. Okay, the consensus agreement is important because from there, if let's say we will just take Malaysia as a country, to develop like a MS Malaysia standard. So means that we have like people from the industry as a stakeholder, yeah, and then we have the people from the government. We have the private agencies, we have the universities or academicians, researchers. So they actually come and sit together and they agree upon something. So that agreement is more toward consensus, creating like a new standard and agree to those standard. Okay, so that we know that that standard can be used by other people. And whenever we want, for example, like company A and company B, they actually use a similar framework and similar reference. Okay, for example, like this one, ISO 20000. Okay, so, of course, in order for us to develop like a standard, there must be a market requirement. So means if there's a demand about some standard, means that we can actually come up with the standard. So we can actually we can actually develop a new standard, and then we can use that standard um, to be as a reference or a guideline for other companies or factory, okay, or manufacturer or government agency whatsoever. So standard is actually important. Okay, all right, and then international, as I mentioned, when you talk about international, because we use a similar references, so we can actually this standard can actually be used as a guideline by company A or B. If let's say we're talking Malaysia, if let's say you are talking about like ISO 22000, the similar standard can be used in Japan, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Thailand. Okay, so that's how it works. International standardization means worldwide recognition. Okay, so it's easier to do to treat the product in and outside of the company. Yeah. Okay, in order to develop the standard, yeah, basically, what they agree is actually more towards a specification and also the criteria, what we need to put in a standard, okay, to be applied consistently in a classification. For example, let's say whenever they talk about materials manufactured or the supplies of product testing and analysis, if we look here, we have like a different kinds of area in terms of terminology. For example, let's say, how can we standardize the definition for crispiness or the hardness or the fracturability or the cohesiveness, adhesiveness, okay? More or less towards the sensory attributes. Of course, whenever we talk about like sensory things, okay, they have like a lots of attributes. And how can we define this attribute? Because different people will have like a different perceptions and also the way how they define something is not similar. So more or less, in order for them to come up with a similar term and similar definitions, okay, they have to sit together and agree upon that terms that they're going to use. Okay, and from here, okay, whenever they agreed about the material, okay, for example, COA, what does it mean by COA? Certificate of Analysis. So what should be included inside the COA? So we have like all kinds of materials, the origin, the physical characteristic, chemical characteristic, any characteristic that actually defined about the product. Okay, a standard one that can be used by a supplier and also can be used by a manufacturer. So both parties will have a benefit from that COA. For example, it can be as simple as that. Okay, and from here, once we come out with the standard, okay, this standard can be as a reference lah. So means that we can actually refer, for example, let's say if we want to export our product to other country, so what are the requirements that we need to follow? So of course we need to follow the reference, the guideline, because if not, the product won't be released to their country. Okay, so that is their requirements. Okay, so the framework of the reference can be used because this is actually considered as a common technological language, okay, between suppliers and their customer. So which facilitates trade and transfer of technology can be made. So means that whenever we want to do trade, we need to look at the requirements of the particular country. Okay. Any questions about the introduction? Is there any question that you would like to ask me about the ISO, the introduction? Any question? Is it okay? Okay.
So far, okay, doctor.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Now let's move on to the elements. So remember, under ISO, we have 5 elements. Yeah. Number one is equal footing. We have voluntary, market-driven, consensus, and also worldwide. So if you understand, it's like the concept. I mean, like this one is considered as a concept because whenever we talk about ISO, okay, ISO means similar or equal. Okay, so who can actually join this ISO? Like in Malaysia, we can actually develop a standard. So of course, they need someone that can actually provide or give an idea in order to improve certain area. Okay, for example, let's say, for example, maybe we talk about like a cereal and dairy product. So there will be like a standard, some standard about the cereals and dairy product. Or maybe you talk about like food packaging. So there will be like any standard or any terms or spec that involve under food packaging is actually will be written in the standard. Okay, so that's why we have like a different Malaysian standard. It depends on a different kinds of area that we have. Okay, it's not limited to food because if let's say we actually a food technologists, we are talking about food product, food process, the food manufacturer and so on. So not only limit on that, we also have like different things like if we work in a automotive industry or electronic appliances, so they have their own standard. Yeah, chemical products, all the soap, detergent, of course they have their own standard. Okay, so equal footing means that everyone will have like okay, not to say like everyone, mean like if you have like a knowledge in terms of that area, particularly about the, for example, let's say food products. Okay, maybe you are expert in food toxicology. For example, you can be as a representative to represent a university or as a researcher, and then sit together with other representatives from industry and share the knowledge together. So means that you actually contribute the idea in order to develop a new standard. Okay, so that's how it works. So equal voting means that you have the right to take part in giving the idea or sharing the knowledge together. So you have the right to take part in the developments of any standard which it judged to be important to its country economy. So means that maybe you want to develop a standard for mm, uh, what yeah food safety or food security. Okay, and nowadays we talk about like food security. So anything any grants actually reflect to the food security. So what are the things or what are the terms that should be included under the standard? If you want to go further, it's like example, yeah, ISO 22000 focusedly in terms of the food safety and management. So there would be like a bunch of people that work for this standard. Okay. For example, let's say if I want to look at, because I have standard with me, the ISO 22000. Okay. Nampak ke? Sekejap ya. Where is it? So this is actually the standard. Okay, the Malaysia standard. So we have this one is a ISO, mana nama dia? ISO 22000. So this is actually example of the standard. Nantilah I bawa waktu kita face to face. So here they have like a lot of requirements, and it's considered as a guidelines or reference that we can use. Okay, and if you flip through at the back, this one is actually the tak nampak sangat. But they have the technical committee that work on this ISO 22000. For example, let's say I can read to you, it's like the technical committee for this food safety system is from like food safety and quality division. Okay, so that one is considered as the representative that represent the body, the governments, or even let's say here we have like a Department of Fishery, Department of Agriculture. Okay, we have MARDI, we have Malaysian Palm Oil Board, we also have Sirimkas, and also a representative from university like UKM and also UPM. Okay, so they actually consider as the expertise in terms of food safety management. So they actually will come and sit together, and they have a right to share the knowledge together. Yeah? So equal footing means that you have, like you have opportunity to give or share the knowledge that you have. Okay, in order to develop a standard. So equal footing would be number one. Number two is a voluntary. So voluntary means that the ISO standard itself is actually like the voluntary means it's okay if you don't want to opt for ISO, but it would be good if you have that and you put it on the package. Yeah.
Doktor termute.
To enforce the implementation. Unlike halal, okay, if you claim that food to be halal, so you need to have the logo and also you need to have the certificate. Okay. Number three is the market driven. So market driven is more towards that whenever you want to develop a new standard, so it should be a demand from the company, from the customer, okay? Because you need to think about the stakeholder. Stakeholder, usually we call it upon the customer or the supplier or the manufacturer, the factory, the government agency, the researchers, any department relate with the certain kinds of standard. Okay, like just now, whenever you talk about like food safety, we have the fisheries, okay, or MARDI. So they actually consider as a stakeholder, which they meet that requirements, okay? Because MARDI also producing the products, okay? And the work is carried out by experts on loan from the industrial. So this one is, we consider it as the stakeholder, yeah? So it means that they have their what we call that, significance, why they want to come up with, why they want to have the standard, because they need a standard for, yeah, to increase the sale, to export the product, to do trade, and so on. Okay. The fourth one is the consensus. Whenever you talk about consensus, is more towards that the agreements that we need to have in between the representatives. So just now, if you talk about like the ISO 22000, this one, so we have like a different representative that actually represent the whole, the standard. And then what they need to do is they throw the idea, they give idea, mm, and then like they have to agree upon specifications or criteria. Okay, because previously we, like if you still remember, we talk about how specification can be made. So now when we deal with the standard, we do have other specifications that will give like a bigger impact to the company. Okay, because that one is actually involves a lot of things. But whenever you talk about like specification, if you are a manufacturer or a company, it's more towards that you create like a specification for your particular products or process. Okay, but consensus is more towards they have to agree upon the standards or specifications or criteria or guidelines or frameworks or reference that they meet. Okay, to ensure that this standard can be used worldwide. Okay, so consensus means more towards the agreement, and it reflects with the last one, which is the worldwide. So whenever we agree upon the standard or the spec or the reference or the guideline, we can use this standard worldwide. We can apply a similar standard if, let's say, you want to export to other country, or you want to import the products from Japan. Okay, they refer to a standard, the Malaysian standard, so they have to follow the standard. Okay, so nowadays we have like lots of products from overseas that actually penetrate into the Malaysian market. Yeah, so one of the requirement is to comply with the Malaysian standards. Okay, so until now, if you look here, we have like a 2,850 technical groups. Okay, or technical committee. Okay, example, one technical, they call it as a TC, technical committee. This one is actually the one example of TC, yeah. One group. So imagine we have like 2,850 ISO technical groups, okay, with some 30,000 experts. So that expert is actually the people that represent the company, represent the industries, or who is actually the stakeholder lah. This one is the stakeholder, yeah. Stakeholder. Okay, so that would be the element for the ISO. So basically we have 5 elements, which is which are the equal footing, voluntary, market driven, consensus, and also last one is a worldwide. Any question about the element for the ISO? Okay, okay, okay or not? All right, yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the benefits of ISO. Yeah, benefit of ISO, because we know that whenever you talk about like ISO, quickly. Okay, so because it's ISO means similar, equal. Okay, balance. Right? It's like isometric. When you learn chemistry, you have the isometric, which is similar. Okay, so because it's similar, because we refer to a similar standard, the benefit is more towards that it contribute to make the development, manufacturing, and supplies of product and service more efficient, safer, and cleaner. So it's easier to make a trade. Okay, because each country will refer to a similar standard. So whenever we have like a similar standard, we can actually make the trade easier. So it's easier to penetrate into the market. Like if we want to export our product to other country, like Indonesia, so you have to follow the requirements of Indonesian's country. Okay, in similar way, halal and so on. So it actually makes the trade become easier and clearer. And number three is to provide government with a technical base for health, safety, and environment legislation. They can use this standard to audit one company. Okay, means that government body like just now, if we talk about like food safety and management, 22,000, yeah, 22,000, ISO 22,000, food safety management system, food safety, kan, nanti tak tahu pula nama dia apa, food safety management system. So this is actually the name for the ISO 22,000. So whenever you talk about ISO 22,000, the auditors, okay, because if you want to have the certificate, the company need to be audited upon the ISO 22,000. So we can use this one as a reference in order to know whether the company comply with the standard or not. Okay, it's like certification body, it's like HACCP, it's like GMP. So we have the internal audit and also external audit. So the government can use, or probably other agencies like a private sector can also use, like consultants that do that actually covered in terms of food safety management. They can use this as a reference too. Okay, and they can use as a guideline, whether they want to know if where if they want to know whether the company follow the guidelines or not, comply the guideline with the guidelines or not. Okay. Number four, we have the aid in transferring technology to developing countries. Like Malaysia is actually a developing country, and then a developed country like a Japanese or Korean or US, UK, Australia, some European country, Germany, and so on. They can actually transfer the knowledge. Okay, transferring the knowledge can help the developing country to enhance better. So the good thing about the standard is more towards that they share the knowledge in terms of fundamental knowledge or even like technologies. Okay. Last but not least is a safeguard consumer and user in general of product and service. So this is more towards a trust, creating like a awareness and trust towards a consumer. So it's like whenever a consumer look at the logos, okay, so they will trust your company more. Okay, more or less like that. Okay, in terms of how ISO standard benefits society, whenever you talk about society, okay, we actually have like four things in terms of the business, in terms of the customer, and in terms of the government together with the trade official. Yeah, so basically we have four. Okay, if we want to look at the first one, mhm, let's take a look at this one. So for business, okay, for business, the widespread adoptions, it's like whenever you have this standard, we can actually can export our product to other country or doing the trade like export and import. Okay, so different for businesses, this one is focused in terms of the factory or the manufacturer. The manufacturer is more towards that whenever you produce a product in a similar commodities, okay, like a similar product, more or less like a brand. Okay, they are actually free to compete. Means that they have, of course, they have like a different specification based on their particular product, but they still need to refer to a similar standard. Okay, similar standard, different specification. So they are actually free to compete, and because due to like they have like a different specification in terms of price, in terms of colors, in terms of the taste of the product, okay, it will reflect to the customer to choose what kinds of product that they like the most. So more towards that, the customer itself will have like a wide variety of the product to choose from. So from the businesses, it will reflect to the customer. So means that customer will have like a wider choice of the product, and it depends on them on their preference whether they want to choose company A or company B. Okay, product A or product B. So it's creating like, because we have like a safe net, safeguard more towards like the customer can, they know that the products are already safe and they can actually have a better choice or a wider choice. Okay. And in terms of the government, as I mentioned just now, probably whenever we have a standard, in order for a company to get the standard, so they'll have to face with the auditing process. Okay, internal and also external process. Whenever they have like these two process, two auditing process. Okay, internal means that they'll have like a committee that will conduct the audit process. But whenever you have like an external one, you actually call upon other body to audit your company. So it's more that from there your company will be evaluated by the government agencies or the private sector. So it depends, okay, on what kinds of certificate that you want to apply. So for government or private sector lah, private sector, this one is actually including, whenever I talk about like private sector, this is more towards a consultation body, consultation bodies that helps a company to get the certificate. Okay, there's a lots of consultation bodies that do for GMP, GHP, HACCP, and ISO, and they are actually making a lot of money. Okay, because this is not a simple task. You need to have like a lots of things. You need to review a lot of documents. You need to compile a lots of documentations to make sure that they can get the certification, the certificates. Yeah. So in terms of the government or private sector, this standard can be used as a guideline. Yeah. So guidelines to help them during the auditing process. Auditing process. Okay. And the last one, number 4, is in terms of the trade official. So whenever you talk about trade official, it is more towards that because we actually refer to a similar standard, so it's easier for us to do trade. Like if we want to export our product to Indonesia or Thailand, okay, or they want to send their product to Malaysia, so they just need to comply with the requirements. So trade official is more towards creating like a competition between a similar factory that produces a similar product, more or less a similar commodity, but in terms of like in more safer and efficient way. Okay, safer and efficient way, because safe, because we know that we actually refer to a similar standard. Okay, we have like a similar standard that considered as a safe net or safeguard towards a consumer lah, or customer, or even a manufacturer. Okay. Any question about this one? The how ISO benefit the society. So remember, yeah, we have like 4, one for business, customer, government, so private sector. The other one is for trade official. Okay, so you have like 4 society that can gain like a benefit from the ISO implementation. All right. Any question about that? Any question? Okay. 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 Oh, good. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to ISO series. Okay. Just to familiar yourself with the ISO series. Okay. We have like the couples. Whenever we talk about like those involved with the food industry. So basically, if in Malaysia, we, like whenever it's like, even though it's a GMP, has a um, GHP, okay, ISO is actually included under Department of Standard Malaysia. ISO is actually another body, okay, but we, if let's say in Malaysia standard, one of it is ISO 22000, is considered as a reference for the food industry. But whenever you talk about like ISO, if you look here, this one, okay. So 2018, okay, this is the year of the revision we made. Okay, usually if they meet in starting in 2020, started in 2018, so the published year for this standard will be another 1.5 or 2 years after. So it's like you have, even though it's 2018, like this one. Okay, if you look here, okay, ISO kat sini kan, ISO 2018, but the year of publish is 2020. Okay, and this one is actually by Department of Standard Malaysia. So they actually have a technical committee that work on that. Okay, so some series that are popular, the most popular standard in food industry. This one, whenever we talk about the food industry, so we have like the first one is the ISO 22000, and then you have 14,000. Okay, which is referring to environmental management system. And then you also have a 9001, 2015. This is more towards quality management system. 22,174, 2005, dah lama is more related with the microbiological food and animal feeding stuff. Animal feed. Okay. And last one is ISO 17,025. 2005 is more towards the calibrations and testing. um, that usually being used by a laboratory. Okay, so these are the examples of ISO 22,000, 40,000. Okay, if you look here, this also stated the name of the standard. It's like environmental management system. This one is a food safety management system. Yeah? The other one is a ISO 2015. Okay, so that one would be for the series. And when we talk about the ISO series, okay, we only have two generic series. Generic means that if you are a food industry, if you are in from automotive industry, if you are from telecommunication industry or chemical industry, or any industry relate with the, like a factory, we have these two standard can be applied to all of these factory. Yeah? So means that it doesn't matter if we are food, if you're electric, automotive industry, or if you're from the any industry, okay, we can actually apply for these two series. So one is the 9001 because it relates with documentation, and obviously each factory or each company, they'll have their own documentation, of course. Like food industry, we have all the AQL, all this SOP, working instruction, all the requirements, and etc. All the process, okay. But similarly with the other industry that is not food industry, okay, they also have the documentations that you need to handle. So IS 9001 is more towards the QMS. They call it as a quality management system. And 14,001 is for EMS, so environmental management system. So both of these ISO can be applied if you are from food, chemicals, or engineering or whatsoever lah, semua boleh apply. So this is considered as a generic one. So generic standard means that can be applied to any organization. It doesn't matter the nature of the organization, whether it's large or for us or small, and whatever product would be. Okay, so we can always apply this generic standard. Okay, so generic standard is like it's a option. It's an, like if we talk about like food industry, if you want to apply for 22,000, you need to have like a lots of investment. You need to consider your appraisal and prevention costs. But if you want to apply for 9,001, more towards the documentation, you don't really need to invest more, okay? Because 22,000 is more towards preventing defect. So there, you need to follow the requirements. Because if you have like a hazard, it's easier for you to have the SXO 22,000. Okay. Well, this one is actually based on the investment. Yeah. But if you have like a hazard, you know that it's already in a good um requirements lah. Okay. Before we take a break for a while, this is actually the comparison between ISO 9001 and 14,001. So ISO 9001 concerned with the quality management, okay, more towards the PDCA cycle plan to check act, okay, to enhance customer satisfaction by meeting customer and applicable regulatory requirements. So it is more towards the documentations that we prepare on how we tackle like a product recall, for example, or how we handle customer complaint. So more towards that handling a customer, even though we have the process, everyday process, okay, we have all the documentation, we have all kinds of form, but also, besides that, whenever you talk about like quality management system, more towards that you are enhance the customer satisfaction. So it will be actually included under the 9,001. And whenever you talk about like 14,000, how we handle, okay, it concern with the environmental management and more towards that how we handle the waste, how we manage waste, or how we trying to minimize like harmful effect. This one is more towards like reducing pollution, okay, pollution. So it means that how actually we can limit the release of monoxide, carbon monoxide gas. Okay, for example, so we have like how we do the 3R recycling process. Or how can we segregate plastic, paper, metal effectively? So it is more towards we manage the environmental system. Yeah. Okay. So I think that one is for ISO 9001 14,000. Is there any question that you would like to ask me before we'll take a break? Any question? Any question?
So
Okay.
far tak ada.
Okay, yeah. So probably I'll take a break like a 5 minute and then we'll continue back. Okay. Okay, let's continue. I already put the attendant links in the chat box, yeah. So you can fill up the attendant link. Okay, let's continue with this one. Okay. Where is it? Okay, here. So we already looked in terms of the generic standard. So now we would like to look in terms of the details ISO 9001, the the QMS here, the standard. So it's similar, more like similar like this one where they have like this color box Malaysian standard 9001. Um, okay, so these are the things. Probably later lah. Bila physical class, it's easier for me to show you the real documents. Okay, so that you can understand better. Alright, but there's a few requirements that we have here. Not few lah, banyak juga. Several requirements which touch about the process that we have in the factory. I just imagine that, let's say if we own a company and then want to apply for ISO 9001. So these are the things that you need to include in the documentation. Okay. So we have like a management, okay, responsibility, quality system, contract review, basically from the suppliers, okay, design control, more towards the specifications that we have for the product, for the package, food package, document control, like verification and validations, purchasing, more or less like the process involved, okay, process control. If let's say you have a CCPs, one particular process, inspections and testing that you might or might have, okay, and then during the production, so during the product found a defect, we call it as a non-conformant, okay, or deviation. So how should you handle it? Means this a corrective actions, okay? Handle this until there this any flexible preventive handling, storage, packing, delivery of things involved. We will deal or still with starting from like internal audits, quality records, actually the okay, there's a lot of things involved. Okay, so this is more about environmental management. Okay, so how can like how can we manage or handle the environmental waste produced by our factory? Okay, so it's like conveying all the liquid waste into the river before treat them is not the correct way. So you need to have like a wastewater treatment, make sure that BOD level is low, and then you release them to the river. So we want to avoid the pollution. So more or less, I'm not really touched into the ISO 40,000. Just for you to know that 14,001 is under EMS. Yeah, I think like if you take like elective EVT, I think you will learn about the environmental management system too. Okay, and then yeah, this is how you know more towards that pollutions, how we manage them, release of carbon monoxides, and reducing the greenhouse effect, global warming would be other EMS. Okay. Okay, so benefit of ISO 14,000, when you apply for 14,000, it actually can improve the key environmental issue. Means that you actually create like a awareness among the customer about when you produce product, you actually taking care together your environment. Means that you handle your waste, whether it's solid liquid waste really well. Okay, and this automatically will give like better greener public image. Means your company is more towards like a environmental friendly company. So you do like a lots of 3R recycle and everything, segregating of the waste and so on. Okay, and the second one an increase in the efficiencies and the use of waste, but you produce like a waste, you know how to convert them probably in terms of waste. Food waste can be converted into the animal feed, for example. So or maybe glass, if you produce like a cheap glass in terms of the packaging, you can actually recycle them back and can be converted into renewable fuel to meet compliance with the regular environmental regulation. Last but not least, this is more towards like a to create like a environmental functions of organizations. Probably whenever you want to compete with other company, so that one can be as another tools and another key points to compete with them. Okay. Are you ready? So basically, when you develop like the ISO, okay, you're actually useful because previously we know that it can give a benefit to a society where we have like four in terms of the businesses, in terms of the customer, and it also can fit towards government as well as the trade official. So more or less is similarly it's the same like this one, where it will be useful for the industrial and business organizations. Okay, then in terms of government and regulatory bodies that want to do like audit to a company, they can also use like a ISO to develop ISO. Trade official, if let's say you want to export your product to other countries, and then conformity assessment professional. This one in terms of the private firm, um, if they want to do like consultations towards a company, okay, and they can use as standards as well. Number five is suppliers and customer of product in both public and private sector. And last but not least is towards the consumer and end user. So the consumer happy, the manufacturer also happy, the supplier also happy. So everyone's happy from the ISO development. So it's actually like everyone will gain the benefits from the ISO. Alright, this one, maybe if you look through the final exam, I think previously the code is FST612, FST612. So now they changed to FST622. Only changed the name and also the code slightly in terms of the UMS. quality management system, but we do apply some the changes similar with the 612 because 612 is the old cohort. You are in a new cohort, so basically we'll just improvise in terms of the content as well as how after 5 years you need to revise back, after 3 or 5 years you need to revise according to the market requirements, more or less like that. Okay, so this is actually similar with the whenever you talk about like FST612. So if you go to the past question, this one is for the final exam. You might find the question about the how to prepare what, okay, like point out the main step to prepare an organization for ISO registration. So they actually ask about this one. Okay, that question actually referring to this structure. So this is considered as the main step, okay, because we have like 5 steps. I think like if you talk about like GMP or HACCP, we can also use a similar step. Of course, whenever we talk about like ISO registration, because this one is actually reflect to 9001, but 9001 is considered as the basic requirement. So when you have like 22,000, of course we have another additional requirements, okay? But the basic one is this one. So it's like the main step, nama pun the main step kan. So main step, what you need to do is first of all, um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the gap analysis. Have you heard about gap analysis before? Pernah dengar gap analysis? Anyone know about gap analysis? Anyone? Yes? No? Pernah? Jeremy pernah?
Tak.
Tak pernah. Hana tak pernah. Okay. So gap analysis is like gap. Gap analysis is like this one. Like this one, more or less. Okay, more or less. Okay. It's like this one. So this is your current state, and this is your goal. So for current state is your current condition, your current process, your current quality, okay, in product or towards the process. But the goal that you want to achieve is like ISO has there are requirements that you need to follow. So in between here is actually the loops or like gaps. What are the things that you need to add or improve in order to achieve this one? Okay, so we want to achieve this, but of course you need to do something from a current state. So this is what we call gap. So gap is more towards like, you identify things that it's not your current practice. Your current practice comparing with the goal or standard, then you compare what are the things that is not in your current practice. So that is the gap. So you need to work on that. Okay. If you want to look details, probably I think yeah, is it this one? Okay, this one. Maybe you can scroll down to slide number berapa ni? 27. So it mentioned to you about the gap analysis. Okay, so gap analysis is actually the things that you need to work on. So it involves with the action plan, current state and desired state. Desired state is your goal lah. Okay, so what are the things that we need to work on in order for us to achieve that? Okay, all right, and then look back at this one. So the main step to prepare an organization for IS registration, first of all, is start with the comparing current practice with the goal. So we use like a gap analysis to do like a self-check, not ourselves, but more towards the company. Okay, company check in terms of the things that already been documented and the things that have not been documented. Okay, so we compare through the gap analysis, and the second one we identify what are the things that already been documented and what are the things that need to be documented. The things that have and the thing that needs. Okay, so identify the needs. So the needs means that the actions that we're going to take in order to make sure that we achieve the goals that we want to have, right? So start a list of documents that we'll need for the quality system and identify the documentations that you already have in place. We know that our company already has some documentation which already have in which already in place. But now we still want to identify what documents that we need to modify or we need to create or we need to develop. Okay, so this is through identification process, right? And then number three is more towards the modify or add. So whenever you already compare between the current state requirement and also the real standards requirement, you have the gap, you identify the gap here, and then you can actually know what are the things that you need to modify or you need to improve. So that would falls under step number three, modify and add. Okay, so for this one, what you need to do is you cannot work alone. You need to have like a committee. So it's like work in like 5 to 7 person. You have like a different people. Okay, like you have a factory, and then in the factory you have like a different department: HR, production, QA, QC, quality management, quality department. And then you have a R&D, you have the engineers, you have the logistic, you have a distributions, you have like clean and sanitation, would be under EHS, environment, health and safety. Yeah, EHS. So environment, health and safety officer, they call it as our officer. Okay, right. So we have this one, a small team that consists of these people. So they actually consider as the expertise from each department, and let them to review the process one by one. Okay, so from there, of course, if you are working in a production department, you will have like a more knowledge about the process, the parameters, the CCPs, the AQM, lots of documents. The big area involved is actually the production area, and also a quality um, department. Yeah. So this is because of when you produce product, you have a process, but at the same time, quality people will keep on giving a pressure whether you comply with the requirements or not. Okay, so both of this area or department is actually contribute like a major, what we call that, they contribute a lot towards the documentation. Okay, so use a small team and then have them review. Number four is now you need to document the process. Okay, once you already modified, you already add to a current practices. Okay, you already identify. So now you need to document the whole process. And if you look here, if you have like this documentation, you have a quality manual, okay, quality policy and objective. So this is actually the standard one, okay. Whenever you talk about like a document, so they must have this thing, okay. Standard operating procedure and working instruction. It's not only one. It depends on what kinds of process you have. Quality manuals. Sometimes you have like a very big, this thick document, a folder paper, or kadang dia boleh jadi dua, okay. And that would be for the documentation process. And last one, once you already document everything, now you need to implement the new system. In order for you to implement a new system, of course, you need to train the employees, all the operators. And remember just now, probably there's some you lack in a certain area, so you have to modify and add into your current process. So modifications and adding will involve with the additions of new documentation inside the document control. So you need to train the employees on how to do the record keeping and towards the new records or forms, and as well at the same time you need to train, give them awareness about the certifications that you are going to apply. Okay, and then afterward, this one, these small team members, you can actually start with the internal audits. So internal audit is actually happens during the committee. Mm, before you call upon the external auditor. Yeah. Okay. So remember how many steps we have for the main step to prepare an organization for ISO. How many steps? Mana semua orang pergi dah. How many steps we have? One.
5 step, Doctor.
5 step, yeah. So 5 step. Okay, ada pun orang. Alright. So this one, move on to process model based on the idea. Okay, so this is more towards like what we want to improve, yeah, in terms of a certain process. So this is actually the more or less it's a common things what we need to do whenever we want to improve on something. Okay, identify the key process. Okay, if this one is actually this one it reflect to number 3 just now. So you want to modify and add a new documentations, or you want to add or modify a new process. So this is actually the process model. What you need to do is you identify the key process. Okay, the key process, and you define the quality standard. What are the parameters that you're going to observe, and at the same time, how can you measure this parameters, yeah. Okay, and then those that you modify, come up with a new process or SOP or working instruction, so you need to document them. Okay, because this one needs to be included in your quality manual. And last is to evaluate your quality and continuously improve. This one is actually because you already trained the workers, and now you want to make sure that everyone understand about the process or about the new additions or the new practice added into the standard procedures. Okay, so this is to create like a awareness lah among the customer employee. Yeah. Comparing, this is the old version, the first revision of ISO 9001, 2008, yeah, the year where they revised. The first revision, this one is second revision. If you look at 2008, 2015, berapa ni? 7 years. So usually to review back the new MS, usually it takes around 7 to 8 years. Yeah. So they'll come up with the new requirements. They come up with the new what we call that improvement towards the standard. Yeah. So comparing, this is actually the old one, the old version. The first revisions. You also have like ni sama, introduction, scope, normative reference, terms and definitions, quality management. They change into contact of organization. In terms of management responsibility, they break into two, which is the leadership and planning. Okay, and then you have a resource management, change to support. Resource management is like what are the things that you need? It's like whenever you want to produce product, what are the things that you need? Decide raw material, and then you have like a machine, people, okay, top management. So that would be under support lah. And then you have a product realization. It's more towards like a process, how you transform this product from A to B. So it involves with the operation. Operation is reflect the process. And last one, you have the measurement, analysis, and improvement. But now they change to performance evaluations and also improvement. Okay, so performance evaluations and improvement is reflects to the measurements, analysis, and improvement. So this is actually the current reference for ISO 9001 2005. Okay, the things. So if you look here, this is actually based on 9001 2015. Jangan terus salah pula. This one is actually 22,000. This one is ISO for food safety management. If you open up here, sekejap ya, I tunjukkan. Depan ni, in front of the content, banyaklah benda-benda ni. Okay, so if you look through this one is actually the content. You can see there's a introduction here, introduction, and then you have a scope, okay, and then you have like a normative reference, tak nampak lah, normative reference, and then you have terms and definition. This is actually according to a standard, and then you have like a context of organizations. You have a leadership, you have a planning just now yang kau tengok kat sini kan. Okay, yang ni you have planning, and then you have a support here, okay, and then you have the documentation, banyak benda lah, okay. Apa terbalik, operation, tak boleh baca, operation, okay, here, and you also have like dekat belakang-belakang tu pula adalah dia punya content, performance and improvement. So banyak. So basically, remember I mentioned to you 9001 is documentation, but this one is actually standard for 22,000. So they use 9001 as a fundamental framework to apply for 22,000. Okay. So the body, you have the body, but you have to put the content according to the food safety management. Okay. So this is actually the body of the documentation. So if you look here, this is actually the how it looks like. It relates with the plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, and act. Yeah. So plan, do, check, and act here. So we separately divide the requirement from the 9001, okay, 2015 into each of the PDCA. So if you look 0 to 3 is not included in any area, but whenever you start with the plan, you have to consider about the context, the leadership, and planning. Okay, continue how you do it is more towards the support and operation, and then check is more towards evaluation, and act is more towards the improvement. Okay, so this one is more towards the PM lah, preventive measures, right? And as I mentioned to you, step-by-step guideline, the last part, I think, the last part ke? Alright. We have the step-by-step guideline, which I just show you about the standard here. It's more or less the same. You talk about like scope. Okay, so scope is more towards like what is actually you want to achieve, or what is the policy, what is the objective of the company. And then you have a section 2 is more towards a normative reference, any reference that you use in order to to get to obtain the certificates. Okay, any terms or definitions, any jargon, any words that you find considered as a jargon. Okay, contact of organization. Um, and then you have section 5 is more towards leadership, and section 6 is more towards planning. Okay, those are the requirements where we have like a top management role, employee role, and then you also have like a section 7 for support requirements, including personnel, training, facilities, and work environment. So these are the support. More towards like kalau if you talk about like GMP, how this standard support the employee. Okay, providing like the facilities, sanitary operation, changing room, toilets. That one will be under support lah. Operation, more towards distributions, and last one is the performing evaluations and also improvement. Yeah, so more towards monitoring, you find defect and how you tackle those things through the preventive measures. Okay, and then we also have like a step 2 is more towards like the step 1 you understand about a company. Okay, and then step 2 is you need like a team to work for this one, as I mentioned just now, in modifications and additions of new, yeah, this one, planning, this one, you need to have a small team. Okay, so this one is actually a reflect to step-by-step guideline. This is actually the main one, but you can also refer to the step-by-step guideline. Okay, so you need like to have a team that consists of this department, because they will actually give like an idea towards the improvement of the quality of the products. Okay, step number 3, you plan the project. It's like you have like a Gantt chart, more towards like you determine when you want to start the project, when you want to have the ISO 9001, and who is the job, what is the job spec, job description, who is the responsible to do modification, additions of new practices in a process. Okay, so to begin to fill in the project timelines like your chart, chart, and target date for the training, introductory training about the 9001 2015. This is more towards like creating an awareness towards the workers. Yeah. And then step number 4, I show you about the gap analysis just now, comparing your current standard with the one that you want to obtain. Okay, so we are actually working through this gap. So you have to identify what are the things that you need to have, and then this is your preventive measures, and this one you train your employee to understand about the ISO. Okay, training employees, train the internal auditors among the small team just now, the committee. You conduct internal audit using the small team members, and you also implement for a couple of months, and then from there you can always make an improvement towards the current process. Need to hold like a meeting or review to know what are the other improvements that we can make in order to improve the company. Last but not least is you register to the audit, because you already registered, because you already conduct the internal audit, and now you want to get the certificate. So of course you need to call upon the registrar to do the external auditing process. Yeah? So that one will be for step number 8. So basically you have like step number 1 up until 8, right? So inside here you'll have like a main step, that 5 main step. Okay, is there any question? I'm done with the ISO 9001. Is there any question that you would like to ask me about the ISO? Are you clear? You okay? Are you sleeping?
So far clear, Doctor.
Okay, alright. So any question that you would like to ask me? Clear? Okay, kalau clear, I think that's all for today. And don't forget to fill up the attendance form. Okay. And today, yeah. Uh, kena tengok soalan dia. Usually if let's say main step is the 5 step, and then you need to look at the, dia kadang-kadang keywords dia juga, like okay, example, point out the main step for ISO registrations. Okay, so yang point out main step is that 5 step. Or if let's say nampak markah yang tu selalunya 5 markah ataupun 6 markah. Kalau nampak macam terlebih sikit, dia akan jadi 8 markah, but it depends because it needs you to explain a little bit, like point out and explain macam tu. So it can reach up until 8 marks. If let's say for step by step guideline tu, dia akan bagi tahu. Maksudnya macam if it asks you about explain the step by step guideline for a company to get the ISO certificate. So that one would be for this one. Alright. Any more questions? Okay. So I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for your time. So